acute sense of the tightening of royal authority. Before 1729, no royal governor in Virginia had suspended an act of the colonial legislature. In the ensuing 35 years, until 1764, governors intervened fewer than 60 times, or less than twice a year. Then, in the 9 years between 1764 and 1773, there were 75 such suspensions, a steady and infuriating rate of increase that the most powerful Virginians, those in the House of Burgesses, felt directly and ever more often. On Thursday, May 19, 1774, Virginia newspapers announced the Boston Port Act. Enacted by Parliament, the law closed the city's port until restitution was made for the losses incurred by the East India Company in the Boston Tea Party in the previous December. The legislation infuriated Jefferson Circle. It was one of what became known as the Intolerable Acts of 1774. Jefferson said he was among the Burgesses who agreed we must boldly take an unequivocal stand in the line with Massachusetts. Patrick Henry, Richard Henry Lee, and 4 or 5 other members joined Jefferson in the Capitol's council chamber, home to a library of parliamentary and legislative precedents that included documents edited by John Rushworth, an anti-monarchical historian who had fought in the English Civil War. We were under the conviction of the necessity of arousing our people from the lethargy into which they had fallen as to passing events, Jefferson recalled, and thought that the appointment of a day of general fasting and prayer would be most likely to call up and alarm their attention. The Day of Fasting and Prayer resolution of Tuesday, May 24, 1774, was one in a series of lessons in the politics of revolution that from the unreasonably frosty May of 1774 through June and July of 1776 offered Jefferson opportunities to manage and marshal the American mind. He had learned the art of pragmatism during the Stamp Act debates, watching more experienced lawmakers find ways to exert their will against that of Patrick Henry. Now Jefferson turned his attention from the chambers of Williamsburg to the broad countryside, from the mechanics of legislation to the leadership of a mass movement. Jefferson's role in the adoption and promotion of the Day of Fasting and Prayer resolution illustrated his growing understanding of the importance of engaging the emotions of one's followers. For Jefferson, the decision to base a revolutionary appeal on religious grounds was expedient, reflecting more an understanding of politics than a belief that the Lord God of hosts was about to intervene in British America. Though not a conventional Christian, Jefferson appreciated the power of spiritual appeals. To frame an anti-British argument in the language of faith took the rhetorical fight to the enemy in a way that was difficult to combat. Jefferson and his colleagues could argue